Welcome from the TAMIU Advancing Research and Curriculum program. The following video contains footage from the ARC Professional Development Workshop SPSS Tool Tutorial, which was recorded in front of a live audience on April 28, 2021 at Texas A&M International University and hosted by ARC Supplemental Instructor Leslie Hernandez. For ease of watching, we have split this workshop into parts. This part covers the introduction to SPSS and its layout. Follow TAMIU ARC's YouTube page for more information on research tools, writing, and content on graduate student success.
Welcome to the Introduction to SPSS workshop. My name is Leslie Hernandez, and today I'm going to be teaching you the basics of SPSS. So first of all, I would like to thank TAMIU ARC program, or TAMIU ARC program, for allowing us to have this workshop. And secondly, I would like to thank you all for being here and being interested in this workshop and presentation. So the topics that you will be learning today are going to be how to open SPSS, how to enter data, how to get descriptive statistics, and how to create charts. First of all, so what is SPSS? SPSS basically stands for the Statistical Package for the Social Sciences. It's widely used in behavioral sciences, so it's a popular program for statistical analysis. As all programs, it has its strengths and weaknesses. So the strength is that it's a user-friendly interface and it has drop-down menus. And that's easy to teach and easy to learn. But that's also its weakness. It encourages mindless analysis and it allows people to run tests without knowing what they're doing. And that I'm going to show you later on, that although you do know which buttons to click and how to get to your outcome, if you were to do this or that you were told to do it manually or using another statistical software, you might not be able to do it. So where do you find SPSS? For students, TAMIU provides SPSS in the labs that they have. We also, the TAMIU ARC provides for some classes a virtual desktop that has SPSS installed, and it's free to use, and you would be able to use it anywhere. You don't have to come to campus. That being said, some of you guys are going to have it in your desktop here already installed, or others might have to go through the search bar to go into SPSS. Just type SPSS, and it should pop up here. You would just click on it. So the first thing you see is this, welcome to IBM SPSS Statistics. So using this, you could open a new data set or open another file or recent file that you already have been working on. For the purpose of this workshop, I'm just going to click close. So here you see the statistics data editor, and this will basically show you this is where you're going to insert your data. And this one's a large empty grid which has rows and columns, and you could only see a small portion of the variables, and as you could see right here, it says visible 0 out of 0 variables. In some of your computers, you might be able to scroll down. You see that there's more numbers, and it would also keep on going that way. Not only do you have the data view, this is the variable view, and later on I'm going to explain to you what this is used for. So for the data view, we do have, like I said, rows and columns. And so basically, if you've used Excel, this is like your spreadsheet. And again, this is where you enter your data in the form of numbers. So as you can see here, we have these rows, and each one has a number on it: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, so on and so forth. So these represent the participant, the subject, or the case. That depends on your data, what you're going to have. And for the column, each one represents a variable. And as you could see, when I enter a number here, it creates variable 00001. And every time you start inputting data into these rows, the column name or the variable name is going to change. And it's going to go consecutively, numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. For example, let's do a number here. And you see it created a variable 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on and so forth, right? Obviously, some of the default as the names, you would want to change it. You wouldn't want to leave it as variable 001. You're not going to remember what it is. In order for us to do that, you could either double click on the variable and it will send you straight to variable view. Or what you could do as well is just click on variable view in the bottom. So now each variable is going to be on each row. And now the columns are going to represent all of the characteristics for the variable. So we have the type, the width, the decimal, the label, the values, the missing, the columns, align, measure, and row. We're going to go over those in a second. Okay, so let's go over the name. Again, we said this is not the name we're going to want our variable to have. Why? You want to have a name that will make it easy to remember. And so the default one is not the best one or the most helpful either. So for us to change the name, there's some important things that you need to know. One, you cannot start with a number. You can't use symbols. You can't have any spaces and no special characters. Each variable name needs to be unique. You can't have it twice. I mean, I guess if you would want to put gender 1, gender 2, that would be dependent on you, but you would also need to remember, what did I do gender 1 for? What was gender 2 for? It's best if you don't use the same name, because when you're already working on your analysis, it would be a little bit harder for you to remember what each one stands for. So maybe you would want to use an abbreviation, and you could do that. You want to keep it simple and short, because there's an option here. The label section, or the characteristic label for that variable, here is when you could put more description on the variable itself, or if you abbreviated the name, just put the correct name on the label. That way you could remember what this variable was. Because if you're already doing months you've been working on your data, you won't remember anymore what that variable stands for. Okay, so like I said, you can't use spaces. So let's do variable 1. I'll try the space so you guys see. You see? Variable name contains an illegal character. In order for us to be able to have those, if you could replace the spaces with underscores, so variable 1, there you go, or capitalize each word. So let's say var, you see? So that way you could remember, oh, variable 1. So what we're going to do is that I'm going to have you add 4 variable names, which are going to be ID, gender, height, and weight. All of these we could delete, and you could either do the right click and then select clear, or there's also another option that I'll show you later on. So ID, gender, height, and weight. So as you could see, I've already mentioned label would be a more descriptive, and they're used to describe the variable in much more detail. So for ID, what we could put here is random identification number. We could expand it here. You know what the ID stands for. Gender. We could go into height. Gender of participant. And you could also put male or female. Height. You could put height in inches, weight in pounds. And you see, you've already described a little bit more of your variable, so that if you don't remember, oh, I named this ID, what does the ID stand for? You don't have to put the whole name as gender. You could put gen instead, and then that way it will make it shorter. Like when you're doing your analysis, you don't need to be writing the whole word, but that way make sure that you describe the variable or the name, the whole name in the label. So I'm gonna go through every single one of these. The first one would be the type. So obviously you could see that it says numeric, correct? That's because by default, we're inputting numbers as data. For the purpose of this workshop, we're going to be using numbers, but you could also change it. So let's click on it. You would click on the three dots on the side, and you could see that you have numeric, comma, dot, scientific notation, the date. You could click on the date, and it would give you the options. Dollar, again, the options. Custom currency, and then you would just select. String would be another important one. And so most of the time you are going to be using numeric, but the string variables, they're letters or words in data. So that's if you're doing a qualitative analysis, instead of using numbers, maybe you're going to be using words. So that way you would use the string option. And I'm going to show you how to use the string option later. For numeric, that's what we're going to be using. So you could put OK. And as you can see here, you could change the width and the decimal places. We're going to do that using this option though. But you could also, just so you know, you could also do it there. So the width, it just specifies how wide or narrow the string variables can be. So this is based for the string variables. What I'm going to do, let's do gender, let's do it in a string. Let's put the width, let's put 2, so that you could see. That one's this one. The first participant, we're going to put it as a female. And it's not going to let me write female because we only put 2 characters technically. The width was only for 2. So let's put 5. Female. You see, it let me write more, but it still didn't let me finish. If you put 1 only, you would only see the F for female, because it wouldn't let you write anything else. You could do F for female, or if you're doing a yes or no question, you could put yes or no if you want to do it in a string option, or later on we could do it with a 0 and 1. So we're going to go into the variable view. Put it as numeric again. Now, this doesn't affect it, it's only when you have it in string variables. Decimals, by default, you always have 2. Sometimes I change it to 0, unless you're using, you do need those extra decimals. Most of the time I don't, because it's in integers or whole numbers, like your data is basically, or most of the time it's whole numbers. So you would want to change it to 0. For the values, for example, in gender, this is if your variable is a nominal type of variable, meaning we only have 2 different categories. So you will label the categories with numbers. So you would have 2 different categories of females and males, right? And so Using the values option, it would be like you telling SPSS what each category or each number represents. So for example, we're going to go for 0, the label is going to be male, and you're going to add it here. And for 1, the label is going to be female. Right. Remember to add it, because if not, it's not going to. Okay, so we already have that there. So now we go into the data view. Let's do 0 and 1. What it does for you is that it changes it. When you have the binary code as 0 or 1, when you click on this one, if you can't remember what 0 stands for, what 1 stands for, you have it there, male and female. You could also do the string one and actually type it all out if you're okay with it. But for it to be faster, you would want to use the categories options or the values. If you have more, for example, ethnicity or race, where you want to put Hispanic, Asian, African American, and all of those options, you could use them by assigning each number different ethnicity or race, and then you would, once you click on this one, it would give you the name of what ethnicity they chose. Now let's go back to the variable view. For the missing column, you can use it to specify what is to be entered for a value that is missing. So for that, when you have values for all variables in a case except one, you could specify a placeholder, or so you could tell it to, as if there's anything missing, to put it as this number. So what most people use is the -9, because you wouldn't use that one into your analysis. What I usually do is I just leave it missing and it would just come out like this. For example, data view, let's do 2, 3, and as you could see, these are missing. We haven't added anything for those respondents, and I would just leave it a little dot. Let's go back to variable view. The columns, it just specifies how wide or how narrow, again, the column will appear in the data view. So what you could see is that let's do gender is the one we're changing, and this will, every time you update something on the variable view, it will automatically do it into the data view. Same if you do it in the data view. What we're going to do is that it would change in the variable view. It changed to 51. We could also insert numbers. You could use a little click up or down on these two things, or you could put the number that you want and type in the number, and then it will change it. Or we could go back to 8. And there we go. We have the same as the other ones. So for you to align, again, you could left, right, or center your data information. And we could see it here. Just that way, sometimes you see it all crowded. You want more space between those. Either you could do this. It would still stay on this side of the column, but you could change the alignment. That way, it doesn't bother you that everything's so crowded. The measure. Okay, so as we said, when I added values to this, it changed it to a nominal. Usually for measurement, we have 4 levels of measurement, but in SPSS, there's only 3. It's going to be the scale, the ordinal, and the nominal. For that reason, nominal is going to be nominal. Ordinal is going to be ordinal. When you have an interval or a ratio level of measurement, you're going to use the scale. In order for you would need to change this before you start doing your analysis, because when you're completing your analysis, if you don't have the correct measurements on them, you might not be able to continue with the process. It might tell you that you can't use that variable because of this. Maybe the variables you could only use ordinal types of levels for the type of analysis you're doing, or only nominal level of measurements for those variables. And it's a nominal, but you didn't change the measurement. As you can see here, it stays as unknown, and so just be sure to change them. We're going to use a scale and a scale for these. Okay. Integers. Let's put a scale. Okay.
Mark 1, take 2. Thanks for watching part 1 of our SPSS workshop tutorial. Part 2 will cover examples of SPSS use and practical applications. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel to stay up to date on all things a graduate student needs to succeed. And visit TAMIU ARC in Pellegrino 203 on the TAMIU campus. For more information on our program, check out the links in our description to make a writing appointment or check out other resources. Be safe, stay smart, and visit ARC.